Hey everybody, welcome to another segment of A Course in Miracles Applied. Today's topic is called Awakening from the Dream. And it is based on a paragraph or two sentences from chapter 18, section 2, The Basis of the Dream. And it is in paragraph 5, sentence 19 and sentence 20. And that gives us the foundation for this segment. The first line is, I'm going to read the whole thing. It's page 377, paragraph 5, sentence 19 and 20. It says, the special relationship is your determination to keep your hold on unreality and to prevent yourself from waking. And while you see more value in sleeping than in waking, you will not let go of it. So this is another one of those instances where Jesus makes it very clear that, first of all, this is our dream, and second of all, we are in this dream because we value sleeping more than waking. And that would be the, I'm going to say, topic of our life, right? As students of the Course. If we want to awaken from this dream, Jesus in the Course gives us the tools to do that. And the number one tool he gives us is that he tells us you're not awake because you value sleeping more. And that's not a judgment, that's just a fact of the ego thought system, that we value sleeping over being awake in God and the peace of God. And the framework of this, of those two sentences, or of this theme of this topic, is the special relationship. And he explains basically, or he defines the special relationship as our determination to keep our hold on unreality and to prevent ourselves from waking. Right? So the purpose of the special relationship, whether this is a special love relationship or a special hate relationship, the purpose of the special relationship is our determination to keep our hold on unreality. Right? We're determined to hold on to the dream. And that is a theme that goes throughout the whole Course. Right? It's a little bit hidden in the beginning when we start with it, and it's a little bit hard to find. But once we realize that that is the foundation of the Course to tell us if we're not at peace, it is because we don't want peace, we want something else more. Right? If we experience a lot of conflict in our lives, then that is what we prefer to the peace of God. And the special relationship extends to not only people, but also things and our body, our relationship with money or with work, anything in the world that we are identified with, any group in the world, any political scenario or party, group of friends, colleagues, our problems, our issues, that's all special relationships. And the purpose of that special relationship is to keep hold on unreality, to keep hold on the dream. Right? We said many times that identification is salvation. We believe identification is salvation. So we identify with those problems. We identify with the world at large. We identify with unreality with the purpose of preventing ourselves from waking. So this dream, right? This is when if we're in this dream and our goal is to awaken, we must recognize within ourselves the wish to stay asleep. If we would not wish to stay asleep, we would be awakened. And awakened is kind of like a buzzword in the spiritual community, right? Oh yeah, I'm awakened, or I'm something. If we are truly awakened, it must bring with it a complete lack of judgment onto anyone and anything. It must bring with it a complete experience of love for everything and everyone consistently. If we don't have that, we're not awakened. We're on the way to being awakened or to awake, but we're not awake yet. Right? Because being awake means we're awake in the peace of God. That means we must experience that love that comes with this peace. If we don't experience this peace, we are not awakened. And Jesus tells us why we're not awakened, because we prefer the dream. And that is where the forgiveness needs to take hold. Forgiveness in and of itself means absolutely nothing if we don't apply it to the thing that needs forgiveness. And the thing that needs forgiveness is our wish to stay asleep. Right? When we look at lesson 185, I want the peace of God, which is the lesson that Jesus says to say these words is nothing, to mean these words is everything, right? I want to awaken from the dream. To say these words is nothing, to mean these words is everything. So part of us wants to awaken from this dream, right? Of course. Otherwise, we wouldn't be with this course. We wouldn't read it. We wouldn't go through it and do our best to learn what it says and apply it to our thoughts and our lives, right? And within this framework of this journey with the course, it leads us to this realization that we're using this world, we're using the body, our conflicts, any kind of conflicts we experience are within this framework of the special relationship. And the goal is our determination to keep our hold on unreality and to prevent ourselves from waking. We are determined not to wake up. Right? And that would be that thought is the one that we bring to Jesus or the Holy Spirit. That is the one that needs the forgiveness. That thought, that determination, he doesn't say you're inclined to keep your hold on reality. He says you are determined. Our number one goal right now, and we have to realize that our number one goal is to stay asleep. If we say, Jesus, I want to wake up, I want to awaken, let's go. That is good for the initial thought, right? All of us have that thought, like I want to awaken, I want to learn this course, I want to finish this course. Otherwise we wouldn't be here, right? I wouldn't do this, you wouldn't listen, we would not read the course. right? But once we have this initial thought that says, I want to wake up from this dream, the next step is, that's what the 1200 pages are for, where Jesus tells us unmistakably that we are determined to stay asleep. That's why we are asleep. Determination. If you're determined to become an Olympic swimmer, you do everything 24/7 to become an Olympic swimmer. Nothing can stop you. And we all had determinations in our lives where we were determined to do something and we did it, right? And this is ongoing. This determination is at present for us to stay asleep. Right? Maybe we believe it would be better if Jesus would say, you're determined to wake up, right? It would be an affirmation. I'm determined to wake up, right? That works up until a certain point in this journey with the Course. It works up to a certain point, and then something takes hold and we realize, wow, my resistance of going home is much bigger than my wish to go home. And it becomes, it comes into our awareness that is the truth about our state of mind. And that's why Jesus says that, right? The special relationship, which is anything, any relationship we have with anything, any kind of conflict, any kind of identification with anything in this world, that is your determination to keep your hold on unreality and to prevent yourself from waking, right? We prevent ourselves from waking up. And that's a little bit counterintuitive, right? Because the whole spiritual New Age community says you should, if you give power to any kind of thoughts, that's what you will manifest. And if you give power to your wish not to wake up, then that's what's going to happen, right? But that spiritual thought system does not consider the very strong belief in sin, in our own sinfulness, in our own guilt. Because that is what prevents us from waking up. Right? There's a reason why we don't want to wake up. So there's a reason there's a purpose for those special relationships. They keep us grounded in unreality. They prevent us from waking up. Right? That's the purpose of the dream. The purpose of the dream is for us not to wake up. And we see more value in sleeping than in waking. And because we see more value in sleeping than in waking, we will not let go of the dream. And we don't want to let go of the dream because we're afraid what happens when we wake up. The reason why those two lines are there, the reason why we're so determined not to wake up, right? We have to think about that. Why are we determined not to awaken? What is the reason for our determination 24/7 to keep us in the dream and keep the unreality alive? What's the reason for that? Why are we doing this? The reason is we still believe in our own sinfulness, in our own guilt. And that guilt is what makes us afraid of waking up. So we can't just wake up. Right? We can't just say, oh, I'm going to wake up now. Right? It's a disservice to us when we don't respect the ego thought system that has guilt as its core. And not respect in a way like, oh, this is, you're great or something like that, but have a healthy respect for the ego, right? Don't dismiss the ego. That is the best thing for the ego, is to dismiss it. That's why Jesus uses words like, we are determined not to awaken to reality. We are determined not to go back to peace. Right? When we say, I want the peace of God, to say these words is nothing. We are determined not to have peace. Otherwise, we would have it. And we're determined, the determination is out of fear. Right? If our house is on fire and I am absolutely determined to get out, nothing will stop me. Because we're afraid what's going to happen when I stay inside. And that's the very same thing, just reversed. Right? We're afraid of what is going to happen with us when we awaken. That's why we are determined to stay asleep. And that thought, when we start to accept that, that is the beginning of forgiveness, because then we can say, well, it's not that I'm lazy or silly or stupid or a bad student. Right? We are afraid of awakening. That's why we're not awake. And we're afraid because we still believe we're sinful. Without that belief in sin, there can't be fear of awakening, and we will automatically awaken. Right? So that determination to keep hold on unreality, to keep hold on the dream, to hold on to it, that determination comes from our fear of being awake. And that fear comes from our belief in sin. There is no fear without this belief in sin. There's no reason for fear. The only reason we have for fear is that belief in sin that we project out onto God. Then we're afraid to waken up into his peace, because we still believe he will take the life back that we believe we stole from him. Right? So we can't awaken right now while we're still afraid of awakening. That's why we're so determined. And through those relationships, through those conflicts that we experience, right? Anything that we experience throughout the day that isn't complete peace, which is pretty much everything, right? That determination is there to prevent ourselves from waking up. And we talked about it during our group, which chapter 13 talks about the fear of redemption. And there was a nice line that the ego either gives us the range of the ego is between hell and oblivion. That is the range the ego, I can't find it right now, but that is the range the ego gives us. Oh yeah, hell and oblivion. Hell would be the special hate relationship where we have conflicts, where we hate everybody, where we are angry, where we're upset about the world. And oblivion is the special love relationship where we think everything is fine. But the nightmare and the happy dream of the ego both have as its goal to prevent us from waking up. The special love and the special hate relationship both have as their goal to prevent us from waking up. That is their only purpose. We would not experience conflict if it would not prevent us from waking up. Because the only purpose it has is so that we stay asleep. We are so fully engaged in this conflict with this person, or with my body, or with work, or politically in the world. We're so focused on it. We are so identified with it that the next question must be why? Why am I so identified with this problem? And Jesus says you're identified with this problem because it prevents you from waking up. Because the waking up is the end of conflict. There is no more conflict when we're waking up, when we're awake. I don't know if I'm going to find it. Oh yes, okay, here it is. Chapter 15. At the beginning of chapter 15, the two uses of time, the very first paragraph, the very first sentence, it says, "Can you imagine what it means to have no cares, no worries, no anxieties, but merely to be perfectly calm and quiet all the time?" And if we are totally honest with ourselves, the answer must be no. Can you imagine what it means to have no cares at all, no worries, no anxieties, but merely to be perfectly calm and quiet all the time? Not just once in a while, all the time. And those questions are there not so that we say yes. The yes means nothing. It's like, I want the peace of God. Jesus says, I know you don't, right? It's much better to say, no, I don't want the peace of God, because then we can go on this journey and figure out why. If we say, yes, I want the peace of God, and yes, of course, I know what it is. I have it all the time, that I have no cares, no worries, no anxieties, but I'm perfectly calm and quiet all the time. And Jesus can't help us when we think we're in that state, unless we're truly there, in which case there would be no need for us to be in this course. Right? So the honest answer would be, yes, I cannot imagine it. Or maybe I can imagine it, but I don't know how to get there. I have no clue how to be worry-free and have no cares, no anxieties at all, but merely to be perfectly calm and quiet all the time. Right? That would be the state of awakening. And then we would add the experience of love that must follow this. Right? There is no neutral state. We're either in the ego or the Holy Spirit. We either experience love or the opposite of love. And the opposite of love can include what the Course calls oblivion. I did one segment about the twilight zone, right? The kind of foggy thing, the neutral state where we think we're neutral. Everything seems to be going okay. I don't have major conflicts in my life, and that is part of the dream. The neutrality, that oblivion that the Course talks about, is part of that determination not to wake up. We must go one step further and look at that twilight zone of neutrality. I'm okay when I'm going if I'm going in a supermarket and I don't love everybody, I don't hate everybody, I think I'm okay. Right? That is a little respite within the ego thought system, where the ego is reasonably satisfied with us. The moment we start questioning things again and say, wait a minute, why am I not experiencing complete peace right now? It's because I'm in this place of oblivion, right? Things seem to be working for a while. We always have to go back to this sentence that we value sleeping more than waking. That's why we're in this state, whether it's a very deep conflict we're experiencing, or we're totally elated because we met this person, or we got a new car, or a new house, or a new job, right? And somewhere in between, we might experience this, what Jesus calls oblivion, right? This twilight zone where we think we're okay. That is still part of the dream. And he says that not to make us feel bad. He says that to tell us we have a little bit more work to do, right? I want you to experience the peace of God, because nothing will satisfy you other than that. Absolutely nothing. In chapter 13, section 3, the fear of redemption, which was the chapter we just talked about before, he says, "For grandeur is the right of God's Son, and no illusions can satisfy him or save him from what he is. Only his love is real, and he will be content only with his reality." So we are so afraid of waking up that we believe we're content with unreality, right? We're determined to hold on to this dream because we're afraid to wake up. So we think we're content with the dream. Within the dream, we try to make the dream nicer. And there's nothing wrong with it. Jesus just says it will not satisfy you. You can only be satisfied when you experience your grandeur, which is when you're with God. That's your true nature. Everything else is a made-up construct that cannot satisfy you, because you're so far removed from yourself, you don't even know that you're not feeling well, that you're not okay. You know, during this journey with the Course, it becomes clearer and clearer that there really are only two emotions, love and fear. And if we're not in one, we must be in the other, right? If we're not experiencing the love of God for everything and everyone, this all-encompassing love, we must be afraid of that love. And that's really good to look at that and realize how deep this wish is not to wake up. We're not doing ourselves a service if we pretend we want to wake up, right? We won't let go of the dream while we see more value in sleeping than in waking. And part of what the Course does is make us understand how much we value sleeping, which means we value this life, right? Ember, what are you doing? Ember. We value our life because we're afraid to wake up. And once we come in touch with that fear of waking up, it also opens our hearts to ourselves, and we can begin to forgive ourselves, right? Because we're just afraid. And we're afraid because we believe we're so sinful and so guilty. And that is what needs our forgiveness. That is what we need to look at with Jesus, right? That that belief in sin that becomes guilt, that becomes fear, that becomes the fear of waking up. And we can be kind to ourselves once we realize everybody is completely afraid and terrified of waking up. It's not just a little fear. It's not just like, oh, I'm afraid of spiders, I'm afraid of waking up. No, this is the ultimate fear, is the fear of redemption, of waking up to our true reality. We are terrified of that. And that's, imagine the terror that we experience, that fuels the determination not to awaken, right? To keep hold on unreality, to hold on to this dream. Because we're so utterly terrified of waking up. For still deeper than the ego's foundation, this is in chapter 13, section 3. For still deeper than the ego's foundation, much stronger than it will ever be, is your intense and burning love of God and His for you, and this is what you really want to hide. Right? We're afraid of going to that love. You have built your whole insane belief system because you think you would be helpless in God's presence, and you would save yourself from His love because you think it would crush you into nothingness. We believe God's love, God's peace would crush us into nothingness. That's why we don't want to go anywhere near it. That's why we don't want to wake up. We want to stay in the dream. And then we take something like the Course, and Ken talked about that a lot. He always said, you know, when you're dreaming and the phone rings and you don't want to wake up, you take the ring and you build it into your dream, right? Some external stimuli becomes part of the dream. And that's what we do with the Course. And I think it's really helpful for us to understand that our goal when we're with the ego is to take this Course and use it to stay asleep. We use the Course to stay asleep. Now, it's sometimes hard to tell, because we're doing it every day. And I think it's just good as a general rule that we're probably likely to not want to wake up and therefore use the Course to stay asleep as a default setting. It's probably most likely that we use this Course or want to use this Course to stay asleep. And then we don't read lines like this, right? That we're determined. Our determination is to prevent ourselves from waking. Chapter 9, section 1, it says, and that is such a crucial sentence in this with regard to this. If the purpose of this Course is to help you remember what you are, right? If the purpose of this Course is to help you remember what you are, help you awaken from the dream, and if you believe that what you are is fearful, then it must follow that you will not learn this Course. Right? If we are afraid of waking up and the Course is there to wake us up, we will not follow it. If the purpose of this Course is to help you remember what you are, and if you believe that what you are is fearful, which love is fearful to us, then it must follow that you will not learn this Course. Yet the reason for the curse is that you do not know what you are. But the reason the curse is with us is because we have forgotten what we are, that we are love, that we are an extension of God, Christ, in the mind of God, in eternity, right? That's our home. But we have forgotten that because we have joined with the ego, and this identity that we have with the ego is fully engulfed in the belief in sin. Permeated and penetrated and woven into our identity is this belief in sin. And while we have this belief in sin, waking up is the utmost, most terrifying thing we can possibly imagine. So what we can do is relax, right? We can relax and say, okay, I'm probably most likely, even though I'm not in touch with it, I'm probably most likely afraid of waking up. Otherwise, maybe I would have woken up already if I wouldn't be so afraid. Then we can completely relax and take the pressure off. Right? Because once the fear lessens, which is when the guilt lessens, the fear will lessen and we will automatically wake up. So there is really no work for us to be done to wake up, to awaken. All we need to do is realize how much we want to stay asleep. Once we have handled that, the waking up happens through that. In other words, the wish to wake up will not wake us up because it is overridden by the wish to stay asleep. The wish to stay asleep is stronger, right? We see more value in sleeping than in waking. We see more value in the ego than the Holy Spirit. We must realize that. If I say I value the Holy Spirit more than the ego, I'm either lying to myself or I'm already there. I'm already in the state where there's no worries, there's no cares. I just feel the love of God within me all the time. If I'm not there, I must value sleeping more than waking, which means I must value the ego more than Jesus. And that's a little bit tough to accept, right? Because we're so focused on God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, we're kind of like, right? But Jesus says, I don't need your love for me. I need that resistance against waking up. That's what I need. I need the juicy stuff, not the boring stuff that you already want to go home. Right? So it's really important to realize that our wish to stay with the ego is stronger than our wish to be with Jesus. And that is where the forgiveness needs to be applied. We can tell Jesus and the Holy Spirit, listen, I really don't want to have anything to do with you, if I'm honest with you. Most of the time during the day, I do not want to be with you. I do not want to awaken from this dream, because if I would want to awaken from this dream, I would be awakened. I would be awake. But I'm too terrified to awaken from this dream right now. And the reason for that is because of my belief in sin, and my own guilt is stronger than the love that you offer me. And then he says, we have repeated this sentence many, many times. I apologize. In chapter 15, section 9, it says, but this you must remember, the attraction of guilt opposes the attraction of God. The attraction of our wish to stay asleep opposes the attraction of our wish to wake up. That's why we don't need to worry about waking up. We need to worry about how attracted we are, how determined we are to stay asleep, which really translates into how strong our belief in our own sinfulness is, because it equals that. Our belief in sinfulness equals our wish to stay asleep. There's not one without the other. If our belief in sin is gone, we will no longer want to stay asleep, because the fear of waking up will be gone. Sin, guilt, and fear are directly connected. Without sin and guilt, there's no fear. If there's no sin and guilt, no belief in sin, we will automatically awaken. There's no work, no more work. The work is only with the block, with the obstacle. There was something else I had. No, I can't remember it. There's another sentence, and I did a separate segment on that, and that is so similar to what we were just discussing with the special relationship is your determination to keep your hold on unreality and to prevent yourself from waking. There's this other sentence in chapter 17, section 4, the two pictures. Chapter 17, section 4. It says here, every special relationship you have made has as its fundamental purpose the aim of occupying your mind so completely that you will not hear the call of truth. It's exactly the same thing, right? It is it's 20 pages earlier. Every special relationship you have made has as its fundamental purpose the aim of occupying your mind so completely that you will not hear the call of truth. The call of truth is the call to awaken, right? And here it says the special relationship is your determination to keep your hold on unreality and to prevent yourself from waking. It's the very same line, just with little bit of a different word choice that brings us into a little bit of a different realm. The first one focuses a little bit more on the occupation of our mind, right? Any special relationship occupies our mind. Like, I can't stop thinking about this, right? The purpose of that occupation is that we will not hear the call for truth. Just as the special relationship in the other paragraph is there so that we don't hear the call to awaken. We don't awake, we stay asleep because of that. It's the very same, identical. And this occupation of our mind, when we're so identified or so occupied, our mind is so occupied with something and we can't let go of it, if we can stop for 1 second and realize that that is purposive, that we're doing this on purpose, this occupation of our mind is completely on purpose. The purpose is that we do not hear the call of truth, that we do not want to awaken to the truth. That is the purpose of this when my mind is occupied with something. Special love, or special hate. I could be totally excited about something. Like in a week, I'm getting this, I'm getting something. Or I could be devastated by something. It's the very same thing. It's oblivion and hell. It occupies our mind. Whatever occupies our mind is there for the very specific purpose to deny that call of truth, to deny that, to keep us in a state of sleep. And then the forgiveness comes in when we recognize that, right? That the recognition that we want to stay asleep is the most healing thing we can possibly do for us and the whole world. It's a very small, very gentle, very light thought that says, I prefer sleeping to waking. That is the turning point. Could Jesus say, okay, let's do it. Now we can work. Right now I can help you with something, because that is where the guilt is. I prefer my own existence to God's. That is the tiny mad idea born into flesh, right? Made real. The tiny mad idea says there's more than God. If I can acknowledge to Jesus that I want to stay asleep as an individual rather than awaken to God's love, that is the tiny mad idea that I'm repeating at this moment, but I'm doing it now consciously. I'm aware of I'm doing it. Jesus, please help me. The reason why I don't want to wake up is because I still believe I'm so sinful. Because of the original tiny mad idea. I'm still carrying that around. That belief in my own sinfulness. And Jesus over time helps us to look at that belief in sin and guilt and deconstruct it. Right? The realization that this sin is not the truth about me. It is a made-up concept. And if sin and guilt is a made-up concept, then this identity that is woven into this sin and guilt, which is me, together with the ego, is also a concept. That's why Jesus says there's a whole section says self-concept versus self. Right? The self-concept starts with this thought, this construct of sin, and then from that our self is being woven, and now we're this end product of this person in this world with this job, with friends and families and issues and problems. Right? That's the self-concept that is based on that belief in sin, that construct of sin. Versus the self that is outside of the dream, that is with God, that's the Christ, the Course. The word for that in the Course is Christ, which is the part of us that is still connected to God. That is our true reality. And in order to get from this false self to the true self, we must recognize that we don't want to let go of that false self because we believe we're so sinful. We think if we let go of that false self, God will swoop right down and he will kill us. Because that false self, together with the sin, guilt, and fear, together became this defense. It became the structure of the dream. Right? The dream is based on our belief in sin that is woven into this identity in this world with all this identification. That is the dream. And in order for us to get out, Jesus really only says the only thing you need to recognize is that you are the one that is dreaming, that it is your dream, and it is based on your belief that you have done something terrible. And I'm telling you, it is impossible, right? Because oneness cannot be divided. So Jesus' presence within our mind is the proof that anything I'm thinking, none of what I'm thinking is true. If the presence of Jesus is real in my mind, the tiny mad idea was literally just that, a tiny mad idea. There cannot be any sin, there cannot be any guilt, which means there cannot be any fear of awakening, which means I can awaken. There's no more reason for me to stay in the dream. If I accept the presence of love of Jesus or the Holy Spirit within my mind. But don't forget that we are attracted to this self, to this ego self, to the sinful self. And this attraction right now is stronger than the attraction of God, of love. Right? Our wish to stay asleep is stronger than our wish to awaken. And that is really what the whole journey with the Course is about. Go from one to the other by recognizing the one, recognizing our wish to stay asleep in anything we do. And get comfortable with it. Get not frightened of it and or upset that, oh my God, I want to stay in the dream. No. Right? It's a very calm recognition. Yes, Jesus, I want to stay in the dream because I'm terrified of what's going to happen if I let go of it. Who's the me that is, when I let go of myself, as I experience myself now, who am I? Right? The ultimate fear, Jesus talks about in the end of chapter 31, section 5, self-concept versus self. He says, I do not know, there is no statement that the world is more afraid to hear than this. I do not know the thing I am. And therefore, I do not know what I'm doing, where I am, or how to look upon the world or on myself. That's the fear. I do not know the thing I am. Because once we question this belief in sin, we question the origin of this self. This self-concept is based on this belief in sin. This concept of sin makes this concept of the self. And we made this concept of the self because we're afraid of our true self, to become our true self. So if we question sin, the belief in sin, we will go through a period where we realize, I do not know the thing I am. I really don't know who I am or what I am. What am I going to be without this self? Right? That is why we don't want to wake up. And that is part of the dream, is to have this identity that we can count on. Right? At least I have my identity, that I have this name, I have this birthday, I have parents, I live in this town, I have issues, I have all this thing, but that's part of my identity, which is based on my belief in sin. So if I question sin, this will happen. This statement that I'm so afraid of, I do not know the thing I am. There will be times in our work with the Course where we have anxiety, where we have fear. We become in touch with that fear of, who am I going to be if I'm going to forgive? And then we realize that we're afraid to forgive. Because forgiving means we're going back to God. And if we're still afraid of God, we won't go there. Right? That's why forgiveness doesn't do anything. We just look at what is in front of us, our ego thought system with Jesus, with the presence of love within us. We look at it And Jesus doesn't do anything, merely looks and waits and judges not. Right? He doesn't attack the sins like, no, you're not sinful. It just looks. And the presence of love within our right mind, when we look with that at our belief in sin, that is the origin of this whole dream, that's what eventually will loosen it and separate ourselves from the ego thought system. All right, I think that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.